see if we can see anything on there. Let me know if you can hear anything, okay? Yes, no? Maybe.
In the YouTube channel, it looks like it's loading right now, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear it from. Let me see something. Let me shut off my audio on this.
Let me know if you can hear anything, okay?
Okay, yeah, give me a second to see if I can shut my audio off of this and then listen to it on the YouTube. Just give me 1 sec.
Yes, no? Maybe.
In the YouTube channel, it looks like it's loading right now, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear it from. Let me see something. Let me shut off my audio. Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
It looks like it's working. It's on a bit of a delay, but it looks like it's working.
All right, that's perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so now we wait. All right, thank you so much for being such a good help, and I guess we'll just.
Oh yeah, whatever I can do to. I know a lot of the work is on you, asking the questions and everything, but whatever I can do to make it a little smoother.
Yeah, and then there's.
But it sounds like a fun one. I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna do it like in May, but it seems we're gonna be in like lockdown, and even though after they open the economy back up again, it's still gonna be some kind of restriction. So that's why I just decided to push earlier. But I'm trying to maybe get another guy to come. Hello.
Hello, it's Janelle.
Welcome, Janelle.
Okay. Welcome, Janelle. We're just waiting for people to sign on right now, and yeah, maybe we get started in a couple minutes. Hello, welcome. Hey, Victoria, how are you?
Hello. Hey, I'm well. How about you guys?
Good. So is everything going okay on your side, Victoria?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean.
Okay. So you mentioned you are in El Paso right now, so it's.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a family emergency, so I had to relocate temporarily, and I'm here, and everybody is talking about rain in Houston, and I'm like, what rain? I don't see any rain.
It did rain for I don't know, a couple hours in the morning. Yeah. Let me go grab a cup of water. I'll come back shortly. In a minute. All right.
On this.
Yeah. Let me go grab. Got quite a few people in here. All right, I think we got quite a few people join us already. Maybe give it 5 more minutes, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, I think 2 more minutes. All right, so I think we have around maybe 12 people in here already. So I think we are going to go ahead and get started. So I guess my name is Leo Chen. I am the creative director of Shifter Design, and I'm also the chapter chair of IxDA Houston. Today, we're gonna have a wonderful event, and we also have Dave and Mohit join us today, and they are part of the team for the IxDA Houston. So we have a couple of announcements today to make. So, for our IxDA conference next year, the location has been decided, and it's going to be in Montreal, Canada. So Montreal is a UNESCO design city, and then the event is going to be happening in I think maybe the late January or maybe early February, I think. So if you guys are interested, please go ahead and visit, I think, Interaction 21 at ixda.org. Okay, and then in the fall, usually during the September last week of Tuesday, I think we have a interaction design day, but due to the coronavirus outbreak, everything is impending right now. And so I think if anyone is looking forward to that, please bear with us. We'll have more information coming up soon. And I think most of you are already doing this. So during the event today, since it's to prevent people over talking each other, please mute your audio, and and please post any question that's happening during the event, in the chat box, and then we will make sure your question gets answered by the panelists or maybe the speakers herself. And for today, we have Rochelle Edwards. She's going to do a workshop, design sprint workshop, and then she's the UX design manager from UX research manager from Google, and then she's part of the YouTube team, and so hopefully it's she will have a an interesting workshop for us today, and we are honored by her joining us today, and please welcome Rochelle Edwards. UX design manager, UX research manager from YouTube. And Rochelle, please take it over.
Awesome. Hi there. Cool. Let me go ahead and get everything shared on my end and make sure y'all can see that. Alrighty. Can everyone see a giant gray slide that says Design Sprint Workshop?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Great. So yeah, hi, my name is Rochelle, and I'm currently at YouTube in the San Francisco area, and I grew up in Houston, went to Rice for grad school, so Houston is a very familiar place to me and something I still passionately care about. Usually come to Houston, and I was planning to come for this. My family is still there, but obviously to learn more. So the goal will be to go through a really speedy design sprint and hopefully get everybody familiar with it. And I hope it's something that everybody can bring back to where they work. So we'll just jump right in. Before we get started, the goal of this is to make it fun, make it hands-on. Hopefully as designers, everyone has something like paper on hand. So I'll just kind of pause it here. Feel free, if you don't have anything that you feel like you can actively write, doodle on, etc., to go grab some blank paper, Post-its, scratch paper, whatever that might be. Say just a handful of pieces, and then anything that you would want to write with, whether that be pencils, pens, colored markers. So I'll just give everybody a moment in case anyone needs to go run into another room. And it looks like there's about 13 or so people. If people want to give a thumbs up or some sort of ready to go comment in the chat when you're back, and then we'll just know that everyone is ready to move forward. It's about half, so give everyone else a few more minutes. While we're waiting, has anyone done a design sprint before? Feel free to comment in the little box if we're afraid of talking over each other. I'm curious if this is a familiar thing to y'all or if this is brand new, something you've heard of. Awesome. Cool. So hopefully it'll be a little bit mixed, and maybe for those of you who've done it, you'll get something new out of it. Even if you have done it, I think at least the example itself will be novel, so it'll be a fun way just to stretch your mind and hopefully a bit of a respite at the end of a long work day or school day, wherever you're coming from, to be able to be creative. And for any managers out there, I think it's also a fun excuse to get to doodling and to get to do the hands-on work as well. Awesome. So I'll just assume that enough of you are back and have material on the hands, and to any of you who hear my voice and you're like, wait, I'm still looking for paper, you won't need it right away, so no worries, and you'll be able to catch up. Alrighty, so in terms of what we're going to do, learn about the design thinking process, actively engage in it. Everyone ideally will come up with different solutions. Normally this is something that would be done in more of a team or a group scenario. There are ways that this can be done in a group, doing things through like a virtual whiteboard solution using something like Miro or Jamboard. Since I didn't have everybody's email addresses before to invite everyone to a group board, we'll just talk about what the solutions are, or if anybody has questions about that at the end, we can talk about how best to support sprints virtually. This can be like really fun and engaging, so I don't want anyone to think that like, oh my gosh, we're remote, I can't do sprints while I'm otherwise in a remote setting, and then feel great about it. And then y'all can move on to the next section of what y'all are doing this evening. So in terms of who I am, as you can see from here, spent plenty of time in Houston was getting my PhD. It started out in organizational psychology and then moved over to human factors, and that's what introduced me to usability, the UX world, and interacting heavily with design. When I was at Medtronic, I wore both hats, both design and research, and that was just kind of part of the role of that particular internship, but definitely found that my passion was more in research. And I was an IC researcher for a number of years, and then segued over to becoming a manager since being at YouTube specifically. So we'll talk about design thinking. And so the goal here really is to lean into user-centered design to push innovation. And so I think oftentimes where we're working, things can move quite quickly. We're always trying to chase product and make sure that we can design something, we can have some sort of an impact, but it's really hard to make sure that we can step ahead of the PRD, get ahead of the product lifecycle, and try and innovate. And so design thinking is a way to rally all of your stakeholders and really try and 10x those ideas. So here is a video. This might be really, really bold of me to try and play a video. We'll see what happens with the audio. It's 90 seconds, so worst scenario, this is a 90-second crash and burn. This is just a really great overview for those who are not familiar with the design sprint.
Hi, I'm Jake from GD, and this is a super fast intro to our sprint process. The big idea with the sprint is to build and test a prototype in just 5 days. It's kind of like fast forwarding into the future so you can see how customers react before you get all the time and expense of building a real product. Every sprint starts with a big challenge, a team of about 7 people, and a clear calendar. On Monday, you'll create a map of the problem and choose one specific target. On Tuesday, you'll create solutions to your problem. But instead of a shout-out-loud group brainstorm, you'll work alone to sketch detailed, competing solutions. On Wednesday, you'll pick the best solutions. Instead of endless debate, you'll use the decision-making process. On Thursday, you'll build 1, 2, or even 3 realistic prototypes. These prototypes are just a facade of a finished product. You can use tools like Keynote, Marvel, and Envision to create fake apps and websites, or to quickly prototype hardware, you can use a 3D printer or modify an existing product, or just prototype the marketing materials. Finally, on Friday, you'll test your prototypes in 5 one-on-one customer interviews. You'll find obvious patterns. Some solutions will work, but some won't. Either way, you'll have clarity about what to do next and a great start on that big challenge. To learn more, check out our book, Sprint. It's got detailed hour-by-hour instructions, and it's packed with stories about startups like Slack and Medium and Flatiron Health. Good luck with your sprint, and thanks for watching.
Great, thank you to whoever muted me. I did not catch that, so hopefully nobody got too much feedback in their ears. So in terms of, hopefully that was a good overview to y'all in terms of what it is supposed to be. It's supposed to be definitely a longer process. It's something that you can do in even half a day if you're short on time, but ideally if you really unpack it, it's something that would unfold over a week with a lot of your cross-functional peers folding in leadership for anyone who might be at more of a startup, really even being able to bring in execs to the table as well to make sure that you're constantly focused on the bigger picture. And yeah, the goal there with that is I'm definitely not trying to pitch that book or anything. At the end, I'll point people to that. It's just a decent resource that I've heard about. But yeah, I'm definitely not trying to sell that guy's book or anything like that. So in terms of what the process is, it's going through these different sections from empathize to define. Here we're getting a +1 for the book. That is good to hear. To ideate and prototype, and then at the end would be kind of pitching those solutions, trying to get buy-in for different ideas to figure out eventually what would get tested and ideally shipped. And so this design thinking process was created by Stanford and the company IDEO, and it really is being successfully used to create both small and big projects at companies both within Google and outside. You might have heard at the end of that video there, he was talking about Slack and other companies. And so you can see, like, starting with empathize, we're going to just take a quick 10 minutes to try and wrap our head around who some users could be in an arbitrary scenario. And ideally, this would be something where you might come in with research, whether you have a research team or as designers, if you're doing the research yourself, to figure out what that might be. And then we'll move on to the other phases from there. So we're going to take a challenge, and this is from what it seemed like the theme of this meeting was around influencers, live streaming, that type of thing. So imagining that you have users who are in a group and they want to be able to live stream remotely together. And so what does it feel like that group would need to be successful? And so as some examples, I just went and took some screenshots. I don't know if any of you all have tried to check out any live streaming or might be live streaming yourselves, but there's some different challenges that people might be facing. So in the top left, you're able to see this band with some cellos. Name that band if anyone can. And these guys all happen to be able to be in person. And so they had to have a crew come help set up their audio and video, but otherwise they were all together and things worked pretty great. And then off to the right of them, you've got a band who tried to come together and do a live stream, but they realized pretty early on that there was going to be a lot of lag. And so they thought, oh, great, we can all play instruments from our different homes, but that's something that just didn't work out. And so then they're like, well, let's just turn this into a Q&A instead. And so you can see they have the chat at the bottom, and it's pulling in chat from Facebook, from Twitch, from YouTube, from different forums there. And then in the bottom, you've got different groups. So you've got people who just kind of like talk as a group of folks. And on the right, it's essentially like a lower budget, I guess you'd say, like news network. And so these are groups that would typically be like at a table. If you think about turning on the news, talking together, they have teleprompters, they have staff around them, and now they're remote. Some other examples for anyone who potentially has tried to watch Saturday Night Live recently, that's another one where people would normally be together. They would have props and things at their fingertips, and now they're all remote and they're trying to be able to record things for their audiences. So the first phase, as we've mentioned, is empathy. And so how do we ensure that we're understanding the problem that we're designing for? Some of us are really lucky and we're able to work somewhere where we actively use the product, but even then we are not our users, and we want to make sure that the solutions are really from the lens and the perspective of our users. And so this is an idea that has been a real mantra, at least for Google, since day one. The co-founder, Larry Page, strongly believes in this. So you can see he really cares about watching and listening to people. Hooray. And so how is this going to work? What are we going to talk about here? And so you might have examples, again, in your mind about how you do it from an N of one, but we'll try to figure out other users who may want to live stream remotely together, or who might want to observe this group. And so we'll take a few minutes now and just jot this down again on whatever paper or post-it you might have in front of you. This could be a musician, a newscaster, a group of friends, or again, from that perspective of the viewer watching this. And make sure that you're giving this person a name. And then I will set a timer, and I'll let you know when the 3 minutes are up, and we'll see what y'all have come up with. Right, 30 seconds left. Okay, so that is time. Hopefully you're able to think through a few different types of users. So going through that list, think about the one you might feel most interested in going deep into, and we'll go ahead and use the chat. And so go ahead and type the person that you come up with, and I'm curious to see how similar or different the users are that you've listed. Do you have no ideas, or is everyone slow typers? Here we go. Awesome. This is great. So looking through it, and hopefully y'all are looking through as well, you're seeing that these are different personas completely. So we've got someone who's an auctioneer trying to sell t-shirts online. We have someone who's hard of hearing, using subtitles more on the viewer side. We have students trying to hold a live concert for a community who are suffering from lag, stay-at-home mom with a book club, farmer's market, a singer, an artist wanting to host an interactive art show. You guys are super creative. This is great. A piano prodigy. Right, so we'll move on from there. I'm sure you're like, what am I supposed to do with these great people? So now we want to, we've narrowed it down, think about the challenges they face. And we're already hearing about some of the challenges they might be running into in terms of lag or potentially some needs around subtitles. So I'm going to put some more time on the clock and start writing down at least 10 challenges that they face, hopefully more. Oh, sorry. Yeah, write them down just for yourself on the same piece of paper, on any other scratch paper that you might have. And if it's too quiet, let me know. I can put some thinking music on. And just as prompts here, put yourself in this person's shoes and think about what they might be going through from morning through evening. And these might be challenges they're running into, not just when they're actually using the interface that you might be thinking of, and other challenges that they might encounter throughout the day. Right, half of the 7 minutes have passed. Potentially you're already done with your challenges. If you feel like you have a good list, that is fine. If you are still going, feel free to message in the chat that you want more time, but I'm happy to move on if everyone feels like they have a consolidated list. Right, 1 more minute left for anyone who's just joining and super confused. You'll be able to, we can share a couple of the scenarios that people have. I don't know that you're able to see the chat history. And then you can kind of pick up and just borrow somebody's scenario. All right, so everyone should just be winding down, writing these challenges. And as you can see here, it's talking about doing it as a team. So normally this would be more of a team activity. So while you would have been doing everything by yourself, in these sprints, in these groups of, let's say, like 5 to 10 people or so, you would now be coming together or in your small breakout groups and able to say, like, hey, who should we agree across these different personas that we would want to lean into and work on for this time? If you have a much bigger group, so let's say you've got 20 people, 15 people that have come together, then you might have a few different break tables all working on different people, or everyone could work on the same person and under the assumption that people are going to come up with really different ideas. So there's different ways to move forward based on what your needs are, based on how big you know that this idea can go, how much you think you can do. So there's a lot of flexibility here, essentially. So we're going to move into the define section. And so we want to bring these challenges together into a single problem statement for this user that you've each individually identified. And so normally, again, we come to agreement as a team and say, hey, let's identify one single person. And so we'll think about what a problem statement is. And so this is essentially just taking all of the different challenges that we've listed here and figuring out how we can boil it down into a single problem statement. And so as an example here, I've listed out, we've got Brenda, and she's a singer, and she needs to play with her band on live stream because in-person concerts are canceled. And so this might be a little bit too simplistic, but definitely think through yourselves. You've got the different challenges and how you might think of what those themes are and boil them down into a solid need and a solid insight for this person. And for anyone just joining, we're trying to think of what are the user needs, like who is a persona essentially for a group of people who might be trying live stream remotely when everybody is in different groups. So you can think of, in this case here, it would be a band who now is all separated and living in different homes, and they want to perform through a live stream. It could also be for the viewer who wants to enjoy this remote, this group live stream. So I'm going to put some time up here, and we might not need all 10 minutes. So feel free, once you feel like you're done with your person, you can go ahead and ping in the thing that you're done, and we'll do some check-ins because I don't want you all to get incredibly bored if you feel like 10 minutes is way too much. And I'm starting the clock now. When y'all are done, if you want to send your message along through into the chat, I'm going to try something out and see if it works. right, you've got about 2.5 minutes left. So anyone else, as you finish up your problem statements, if you can ping them to the group, that'd be great. All right, 30 seconds left. Alrighty. So if you haven't sent in your scenario, feel free to, otherwise we'll move ahead. So I'm going to switch tabs real quick. I tried to put everybody's scenarios onto one of these Jamboards for those who aren't familiar. So hopefully now you can see little yellow sticky notes with all of your scenarios. It might be super tiny font. And I tried to group them so we can see we've got some that are individuals who are trying to conduct a certain task, either explicitly through live stream or at least reaching out to customers. And then we've got someone, this is more of like a viewer who wants to conduct training. And then here we've got musicians who want to do concerts in different groups. And then here we've got people who want to have different other types of groups amongst themselves. So more of a virtual study group, and then more of some sort of social interaction, whether that might be some sort of book club or who knows what this mom wants to do to get together. And so we'll try to narrow this down now. So we can group this, I think, based on the number that we're seeing here. And obviously there's some people who joined who haven't been able to take part yet because you're clueless in terms of what is going on. And so we'll figure out the best way to vote for something like this. Normally, people would be able to just kind of like discuss and talk about it. And so it seems like in terms of the way that the clustering is going, we'd be able to pick out potentially one of like the viewer type scenarios and one of like the creator type scenarios, even though the numbers don't exactly split 50-50. Hopefully y'all are cool with that. So if we look at the viewer type scenarios, I'll go ahead and take Richard and put him over here. So we've got Richard, Kristen, and Dan. And so they're not necessarily creating in the same way that these others are. Let's see. So potentially this can just be whoever is fastest on the buzzer. We'll kind of split into two groups. So amongst these three, we've got Richard, Kristen, and Dan. Who should we design for? Dan wins. You either have a fast connection or fast fingers. Alrighty. So David, you also have empathy for Kristen. There might be a way to fuse these two. So this college student could also be a mom. So maybe we've got a Danston going on here. And we can fold these scenarios into one. So think about if you would like to design for this type of scenario. And then we've got these others going on here. So here we've got different types of live concert needs. And then here we've got someone who's wanting to do auctioning, live gym training, selling coffee, selling eggs. So now we've got more names here. We've got Wayne and Idenia. And then we've got, just at a glance, I'm trying to figure out for a fact if these other ones are talking about doing, I think there's added challenges in the group scenario. So I might just kind of narrow it down to both Wayne and Idenia. So once again, whoever is fastest, jump on the trigger there, unless you can convince me otherwise that these others would be group scenarios. They're very similar between Wayne and Idenia. Nobody has any preferences? Idenia for the win. All right. So I'm going to put these guys at the top here. And so across these two different scenarios, I'm just moving these other ones to the bottom so they're out of our line of sight. Let me make these a little bit bigger really quickly. I think you can do that. You can tell how often I use this. I think this is great. Feel free to pick one of these, kind of fusing them to scenarios. So either somebody wanting to organize a live concert, and you can think about what the challenges might be there. Or if you're Dan or Kristen, and so you're a student mom who's feeling like they've got a lot of kids and they need to be able to interact with some adults. And in addition, they have to study for school. They've got a lot going on. So think about which scenario is more interesting and more meaningful to you. If you wrote for one of these people, if you don't mind just pasting potentially the list of challenges that you ran into to help people empathize with this person even further, that would be really helpful. And then we're just going to assume that there's going to be an even enough split of some people designing for the two different groups of users. And let me know if you have any questions. Alrighty, so I'm going to switch back over here. So now we want to be able to ideate. So we've empathized with two different users, and we've been able to synthesize those into a defined problem. And so this is where we're going to think about all of the possible solutions that come to mind. And so hopefully for y'all, you're going to be either thinking about Idenia or thinking about Dan/Kristen. And so this is where you really normally would be taking as much time as you need. And this is where you'd really be able to 10x it. And so as someone who would be leading the design sprint, the goal is to make sure that you're not fixated on whatever might be boxing you in today. If you say, well, if we're thinking about YouTube, well, YouTube doesn't let you do that. You don't want to think about whatever constraints you might have. It's really starting from scratch. And so hopefully everyone joining today isn't thinking about or isn't familiar with whatever constraints there might be. So you really are thinking quite greenfield. So thinking about really outlandish ideas to immediately actionable ones, you really want to engage in unrestricted brainstorming during this time. This should be the fun part. So who is familiar with Crazy Eights? Sweet. Hopefully this is new for some, if not most of y'all. So if you have a large sheet of paper, like a normal printer 8.5 by 11 type of thing, you want to fold it so that you've got 8 little segments. So you can think of a couple different ways to fold it. The hacky way is if you just take a pen and draw lines so that you've got 8 different boxes. Give everyone a moment to fold their paper there. And I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock, and you're going to think about that different persona that you're going to have. I'll switch it back over to that Jamboard view in case you need to glance up if you didn't jot down exactly who you're designing for. And it can be stick figures, it can be some words, boxes, whatever it needs to be. The idea isn't to dwell too much into one box and really, again, to think really big and from box to box to whether it's that might foster a new idea or to go as orthogonal as possible and to try and come up with really different ways to help this user out and to find solutions to get this user where they need to be. So let me pull this back up so people can focus on it. And your 3 minutes start now.
Getting all those questions, I want to point a few of my plans out of here. So I'm going to continue working freelance, and I already have projects lined up for the summer. And in the meantime, I'm going to work on different other projects. Yeah, I would just say education. So we'll be waiting.
One minute left.
So many people you are following me so much for that. I really, really appreciate that. So here's to the ones that we got.
And time. So hopefully from that, you really felt that you weren't limiting yourself in any way and there was no idea that was too crazy and you were coming up with every solution that came to mind and just really freely doodling from box to box and not thinking about feasibility. So when you're doing this, again, you shouldn't let feasibility be constraining you in any way, and really just writing down, again, everything and not narrowing down. So ideally, you don't come in with a solution and saying, well, let me just jot down 1 or 2 boxes. Let me switch back over here. Not just thinking like, I know for a fact that I want to do what's in box number 2, and I'm just going to get fixated on that, but really allowing yourself to continue to push it. And again, at this point, you'd be working typically with a team. And so somewhere like this, even if you think it's the best idea, unless you're able to continue pushing yourself, there might be something else, momentum coming from a team that you don't anticipate, and they might really latch on to other ideas that come later. And you are also able to unleash creativity within yourself. So from here, hopefully you were able to come up with, was anybody able to come up with all 8? No, it can be challenging. And it is not a race. The goal is not necessarily to fill it all up. So go ahead and look at the different doodles that you have, sketches, whatever you want to call them, and circle whichever one feels like your favorite idea. And so now we'll expand. I think just for time, we'll just expand 1 idea instead of 2. So we're just going to expand 1 of the ideas onto paper. And I'll give you all 3 minutes instead of 5, since we'll just be leaning into 1 of the ideas. And again, you circled 1 idea, but there might be different aspects across the different boxes that you were able to complete that might feel really compelling and that you want to fold in to this bigger idea. And then this is what you'd be able to bring back to your team. So this is 5 minutes. We're going to do 3 minutes and just 1 idea. So the time starts now. Yeah, and so this would be, if in your mind this feels like you're building a feature or an app, if it feels like hardware or software, whatever solution it feels like you're bringing to the table. One minute left. All right, that is 3 minutes. And so obviously this is quite quick and we're just kind of condensing the time down. So hopefully y'all again are learning about the process, having some fun, engaging in it while learning about it. And then obviously I've been doing a lot of talking and y'all have been really respectful, chatting and keeping everything muted. I'm hoping potentially 2 of y'all want to share just where you are now and want to show off your sketch. I'm just going to stop presenting for now so that for whoever wants to come off of mute and share what they have, just briefly hold your lovely image up to your camera and talk about it. You'll have more real estate if I stop presenting. Any eager volunteers?
I guess I can share. Let's see. This is Donaldo. I don't know if you can see. So I was designing for a student. It kind of tried to come up with like a kind of a split screen where there'd be kind of a shared notebook on the right hand side, where they'd kind of be going through ideas or like notes, and then on this side, they're kind of chatting, and like easy to communicate, and also maybe like adding emojis like thumbs up or happy face, smiley face, heart, like when someone likes the message, and kind of like the video is more of like a kind of takes a back seat a little bit and kind of is on the smaller at the top, so you're still seeing everybody. And yeah, basically just kind of like being able to write and maybe draw, or maybe quickly cut and paste like an image or something that you find, and just kind of where everyone can later see stuff. That was my stuff.
Thank you. And do you feel like you folded that in from one of your squares, or was that kind of like a compilation of a few different ideas?
Yeah, I had the little grid, and I just those were kind of 2 ideas that I came up with, and I kind of folded those into kind of like designing the screen.
Great, thank you for sharing. Awesome. Does somebody else want to share? Don't all jump at once. Right. If not, no worries. We can forge ahead. All right. So the next step typically would be where everybody is presenting. So everyone would be putting their drawings up on the wall, for example, or if everybody was using a shared space, then they'd be able to do some sort of show and tell, put their images in a digital space where we would all be able, let me get my slides up again. There we go. Being able to see everything where people could then vote in some sort of manner. And so doing something like dot voting. So in person, it would be using, for example, like the little sticky circles that might be used on medical charts, for example. And then in a virtual world, if you're using something like a Jamboard, then you're able to use like a little marker and make a scribble next to the image that makes the most sense. Or if everybody were showing and telling, then there might be like a doc where everybody can write things down, or potentially just using your own piece of paper or some sort of form. So basically any way where you're able to say like, hey, this person got more votes than that person. And this would be a way to consolidate either around the entire image to say like, let's move forward with this one idea, or different components of it. So sometimes ideas can be quite complex when people are thinking about full apps and not just narrow features. And then there might be parts of it that are really compelling. And you'll see people trying to put their dots just on the smaller features as opposed to the entire pieces of paper. So again, whoever is the sprint master can define the rules and what makes the most sense in terms of what counts as a dot and how many dots you want people to have. And that might also depend on the number of people who are presenting ideas as well. All right, so the next step from here is where we would be prototyping. And so again, normally we would be consolidating this down into even fewer ideas. Essentially, we've kind of done that already because we've got 2 personas that we're sort of thinking about, although the ideas themselves are going to be all over the map, but hopefully that can be considered interesting and fun. And so the goal here, hopefully that 3 minutes felt really short to you and you're like, ooh, this is really rough, this is sketchy, there's more that I want to pack into this. And then as well, like when we ideally would have heard from other people, it might give you some ideas of what you could do to embellish yours even more. And then for something like the prototyping session, this doesn't just have to be with paper, this can be anything. So as you heard in the video in the very beginning, if there's any sort of prototyping tools that people might want to use, especially if you have a more design leading group. If this is working with a group, then you'd be able, for example, to join a chat on your own. So people might have breakout groups and everybody would leave this main group, step away for however much time is allotted to them. And then if you're the only designer in the group and you're working with a PM and a researcher, et cetera, then you might be driving the actual designing, but taking the input from the other folks that you're working with. And so it can be really important not just to break up those groups by people who are really passionate about the different groups, but also making sure that they're quite cross-functional so that you have somebody who's able to easily action the design. You have somebody, again, from that PM side. And so trying to figure out how you're able to split those groups up nicely. And that could also potentially dictate how many groups that you have. And then as well, if you're doing something more hardware versus software, that might say that you want to do more than just with paper. Maybe you want to have something 3D, and you can go crazy and wild with it. It doesn't just have to be pencil. You can get color involved, really whatever it is, however much fidelity makes the most sense given the amount of time you have. So here, I'm happy to give you all some time to really give it some more oomph. And I am going to put more of y'all on the spot to present after the end of this, just so you know, maybe that'll give you some pressure to put more effort into it if that's why you were afraid to present it. But again, no judgment. I don't think anyone in this group is looking to judge anybody. And we're obviously not going to be shipping any of these ideas from what I can tell. So I'll add some more time on the clock. And again, just for time, I'll change it to 10 minutes instead of 15. And again, just have fun with this and embellish your idea from where it is to a bigger and better idea in 10 minutes. And time starts now. Alrighty, we're getting a little nudge to speed up. And so obviously what y'all are drawing is more for your enjoyment instead of it going anywhere. So I'm just going to ask everyone to put a pause on that. Some of you might be breathing a sigh of relief, and some of the others of you feel free in your free time to keep thinking through it again, just for fun. So normally we would be sharing here. Luckily, we saw one of them get shared already. So we will skip the sharing. And so normally, again, this would be where you're able to really talk about it, walk through your ideas, potentially being in, because this would be a much more polished prototype, bringing in leadership, bringing in the people where you really need to get this buy-in to potentially work on building certain things. So you also potentially would want to be crafting more of a pitch around what specifically you're talking about and why it's important to build, why it should matter, and then also potentially storyboarding it, having different frames. And this is where obviously something like 10 minutes, 20 minutes wouldn't be enough because you'd want to be able to go through this scenario in much more depth, thinking about this user and their needs. So hooray, you completed a quasi first design sprint there. And so we'll do a really quick debrief. So normally what would happen next is that you'd be able to consolidate and decide what exactly you would be working on. So let's say you had 4 ideas, potentially those would get prioritized and you might figure out one that you'd be able to feasibly work on right away. There could be some costing that would then be factored in. And so maybe this 10x idea gets factored down to figure out how it could actually be executed. And then you'd be working, so that very last day from the sprint video would be testing. So from what you have, you would test it in front of real users and get feedback. And then you would continue as you would as designers to iterate and continue to test until it makes sense and then get that thing shipped. So I'll let you guys just internalize these next questions in terms of how this felt. Think about folding your own team members in and how this could make sense to fold into your own work if you haven't. And then also thinking about how you could use some remote resources if this is something that maybe you have used in person and haven't yet used since being remote. So just some best practices for sprints is making sure that you have a really clear goal walking in, what the purpose is, what it is for, what platform it might be for, if that's a constraint. You might already have the user already figured out, and making sure that if it's you or someone who really is going to decide to watch the clock, break ties, put ideas that might be a little out of scope into into a fridge, for lack of a better word, and making sure again that you have a really diverse group. So you don't want all designers, all researchers in the group, but you really do want a cross-functional group of peers who can again spend, if this is 3 or 4 days, whatever it is, and that can be the hard part, making sure that people really are devoted and that they're clearing their calendar for the sprint. You might at the very beginning want to bring other experts in. So these might be other engineers who aren't going to join the entire thing. I don't know who is being asked to mute. And so for that one in particular, you can have people come in with what they might know. So it could be other researchers, it could be PMs coming in with different business goals, and whoever you think might be valuable to come in at the beginning and give some expert talks. And then again, right now there's different things for remote sprints that you can lean into, like a Jamboard or Miro or other solutions that you might be aware of. And then in person, normally you would have able to use it has a layer of spaces. And then you want to be prepared for a long day, so bringing a lot of supplies, Post-its, paper, pencils, etc., snacks, water at your fingertips, and then really making sure that you have clear rules. So ideally nobody is multitasking, engaging in email, texting, etc., and all of that goes off to the side. In terms of learning more, feel free, this is the Google Ventures site, publicly available, and then this is that book. Again, it seemed like someone else has read it and liked it, so you can go check it out if you want some step-by-step instructions and there's anything you want to get out of it. And that is about it. So hopefully that was fun. You learned at least something. And I'm happy to pass it back over.
Well, Thank you, Rochelle, and for your wonderful workshop. So we are running a little bit, past our original plan, but maybe can I go over the original plan a little bit? So today we're just gonna have a little bit of a short panel session about influencers, and so I think I'm gonna get our speaker Sanglan, see if we can turn on their videos and see who's still here. Let's see here. So first of all, we have Jenna Rondon from JennaRondon.com. She's a blogger and influencer, and also a recent mom, I think. And let me see, I can change the layout here. And we also have Victoria. I hope that she's still here. She's a marketing person from the international school, British International School. And we have Arushi Gar. I think she's from Z America. She's a strategic marketing manager, and then also a influencer from Snazzy Moms. So if you guys can maybe turn on your videos and join us. Let me see here. Everybody doing all right? There we go. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can change the layout a little bit. So why don't you guys give us a self-introduction and tell me a little bit about who you are and what do you do? Maybe start off on Janelle.
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Janelle Rendon. As Leo mentioned, I'm a blogger and influencer. I am a relatively new mom. I have a 1 and a 3-year-old, and Kristen, that was basically me. I am basically Kristen. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I do my blog and kind of the social media stuff in the pockets of my day when I can. And I'm a Houston native. I live in Cyprus now, and I'm a Texas A&M grad.
Victoria.
Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria. I work at the British International School of Houston. I am their marketing and events manager. And basically, I am tasked with helping to grow the school. So I do a number of tasks. I wear lots of hats. Most of the marketing collateral has been designed by me, but I also do a lot of the marketing strategy and working with the vendors, and even touring the Hispanic families since I'm the resident Spanish speaker. I've been there for 1.5 years, and my educational background is anthropology and psychology.
And Arushi.
Hi everyone, I'm Arushi Garg. I've been working in the media and advertising business for almost 10 years now. I work for a TV station called ZTV. It's the biggest Asian TV station in the world. And I also blog at the Snazzy Mom. I'm from Houston. I live in the Heights. I've been in Houston for almost 10 years now. And I moved here, immigrated to Houston 10 years back from India. So my education background is from India in sociology and marketing, and I also did my MBA from University of Houston.
All right, sounds great. We have a great panel here. So obviously today's topic is influencer, and then thank you for Rochelle for a wonderful workshop on live streaming and how to find empathy for the users. So one of the things that come out I wonder is that influencer nowadays is becoming sort of a important topic, I guess. So why do you think influencer has become a greater part of the brand experience? So maybe Janelle can start.
Sure. I just think it's really all about building that trust with your followers. And so I think that's something that influencers are able to do in a different way than traditional media and ads. And yeah, I mean, even if an influencer is working with a brand, it's not just about that one, post or ad or whatever that they're doing. You're really paying for all of the trust that they've built with those followers all the way back. which I think is what's really neat, and I think is what makes it valuable for the brand.
And Victoria?
Yeah, so I was thinking a lot about how to answer this, and part of it is that influencers have sort of become a marketing channel on themselves. And I really like what Janelle just said, because it really does come down to the trust that they built with their audience. So for us, for somebody like me, it's about reaching out to somebody who has the same audience that I'm looking for, right? But it's very important to have some of that branding match, because the influencers are a brand of their own. And
Okay. Arushi?
So I have been blogging for almost 3 years now. My son's going to be 4 very soon, and I think what connected me with my followers is just being authentic, being honest, and talking about your daily struggles, and kind of feel like there's a human behind this account. It's not about perfection and a great feed and having everything in sync, but really bringing out those raw moments and sharing an authentic storyline. And I think that is what brands are looking for at this moment. I have had the pleasure of working with several mainstream brands, creating content on Instagram or the blog, or even assets for them. And every time we have a conversation, it's always about, kind of saying the story from by us. It's not really dictated by brands. And I personally feel if creators are creating authentic storylines, those brands will perform better. And yep, that's what I think. It's just all about authenticity.
So I guess also like many companies are being asked to put like Instagram feeds into their websites, or so how can influencer help generate traffic, also help the brand grow? Um, Maybe Janelle.
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'm not sure if I'm answering this question exactly right, but basically just generating traffic, I think you really have to ask for your followers to do something. You have to ask for them to engage on your posts, like your posts, comment below, follow this link, whatever you're trying to ask them to do. You have to like do it. You have to ask the question. You have to ask for what you want, and to really drive traffic to where you need it to go for that brand.
Victoria?
so we're wondering about how we generate traffic, how an influencer can help me generate traffic, right?
Yes.
So, and it's something as simple as, a lot of my experience work with influencers is watching what they do on YouTube and things like that, right? So, as a brand, what I'm looking for is the trust that you have built to say, hey, this is another brand that I trust. You should go check them out. So that creates awareness for me. The hardest part, which I know you will address later on, is always coming back to how are we keeping track of whether this awareness is working for me or not. But it really comes down about creating awareness for the brand.
And so, how important do you guys think? Maybe Arushi can kind of pick it up from there too. So, how important do you think influencers are to the product and the app's growth?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The last part? I didn't get it.
How important do you think the influencers are to the product and the app's growth?
So right now, like with the current situation, we can see that brands are struggling to create content online, which is again shooting with probably a model, or working with different creative aspects. So they are reaching out to influencers to create those content, which can probably be shared by the brands on their social media. I think what is important for brands for this time is to identify the kind of influencers and the storylines that they kind of relate to and the brand synergizes with. And going back to the earlier question, I feel like brands need to identify the feeds, the people behind these accounts, accounts and how their narrative can attach to their social media pages or storylines?
So yeah, so I think content is important. So I mean, so how do you create authentic content? So for websites or create interesting social interactions. So we see the example of ice bucket challenge a couple of years ago, and some hashtag kind of jumping up and down constantly. So how do you create authentic content and social interactions?
I can hop in here. So I did something recently. I like to talk about skincare a lot on my Instagram and whatnot. And so it's right when the quarantine was starting, I like for about 2 weeks, every night or every day, I would kind of share what I was doing with my skincare, and I would share the products that I was using. None of it was sponsored. And then I asked my followers to participate in that too. And so they were doing their skincare. They were tagging me. I was able to then share their content, which I think, built a relationship between the two of us. And then whoever participated the most, I sent a box of like all my favorite skincare stuff at the very end. So I think it's a really neat way to, obviously did not go viral, or it was not anything major, but it helped me build that relationship with some of my most engaged followers.
I like to add that you need to have content that adds value. So, for example, right now, as a parenting blogger and as a working parent, what can I give value? How can I add value to my social media feed and to the readers? And the question is to probably give ideas, tips, and information through which the person who's watching my feed or my blog can kind of take back something. It's not just about perfect looking pictures, but really a value. So for example, like I'm homeschooling. This is completely new to me and I've never done that. Plus I'm working from home. So I had to share a blog post on how I'm balancing that. So the working moms can take away some tips. Recently, I just shared about the games that we've been playing at home, which is educational. So it's again creating content which is authentic, yet kind of marrying it with the current time. So you don't look out of sync. You're not talking about a vacation, which is not happening in any time soon, but relating probably those memories in these current moments. So yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So what are the tools you guys use to kind of guide you or influence the design of your content? So what kind of tool do you use to kind of as a guidance for you to create a content for you?
I can say that I use Canva, and I think Canva by far is one of the best services that I have been using, because it's fairly simple for a person like me who has limited design knowledge and experience, and playing around with PDF or Acrobat. It's just very simple. So if I have to create a blog post and if I have to create some kind of graphics, I use Canva a lot. It helps me make a Pinterest image, an Instagram post, or I can also create anything, like literally anything. I design my business card on it. So for me right now, I use Canva as an app to create any material.
Yeah, I had Canva written down, and then I use Lightroom to really help all of my photos kind of have a similar look. And that's a free app.
Okay, so I mean, so how do you guys use any kind of Instagrams and TikToks or?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes,
Okay.
social media channels as well.
Okay. So how do you measure success? How do you measure the success of an influencer campaign? And what kind of metrics do you look into when you are success of failure?
So I mostly just use my insights on Instagram and Facebook. They honestly, they're really impressive. Or I've never needed more than what Instagram or Facebook could share with me. And then I can use the insights on my blog, like on the back end of my blog. And then if I really want to dig deep into something, I can use Google Analytics, but I don't really usually need that much information.
For me, if I'm working with any brand for a partnership, usually I've seen brands have, they ask us to kind of go on our Facebook pages and set up the business account on their side for them to see analytics and just see how the campaign performed. Some brands usually ask for insights and they ask for screenshots on, what was the reach, what was the comments, and just in general to get a snapshot. But these days, what I'm seeing largely is brands kind of have these softwares, I would say, where they can see the amount of likes one campaign generated. Like they have this platform at their end, and that platform calculates everything. So, for example, Aspire IQ is one of the platforms where a lot of bloggers get influencer projects from. And that platform, you have to go and register and you have to set up an account, your Instagram account, and you have to attach your Facebook analytics to it. And the platform itself pulls out all the analysis from your account. It's not necessarily right, but it's still some kind of data for brands to kind of look at.
So, as a marketer, to kind of piggyback on that, as a marketer, we're always looking for that information because it's kind of how we guide ourselves in determining who we want to work with. Sometimes small numbers are good though, because it just means captive, small audience, right? But to kind of go off on that a little bit, we obviously, as a marketer, you want to have a key performance indicator set up from the beginning. A lot of the things that we do is we do tagging, so that we know, like, okay, this set of traffic's coming from Janelle's campaign, this one's coming from Rushi. So it's about making sure that you know where the traffic's coming from, where the so tagging is very important. And I use a lot of Google Analytics to see how the traffic is performing, what are they doing, how long are they staying on the website. So that's what it's important for us to have the analytics side of things as well.
Yeah.
Also, sorry to add, I'm sorry, for insight, a lot of brands end up giving a code just to see what was the kind of sales that came from someone. So it would generally be a code like the Snazzy Mom 20. So it's like a 20% off, or it's a $20 off. So for example, Hello Fresh meal service would give my followers a coupon code, which is Snazzy Mom 20. So when anyone from my profile sees the ad on my Instagram and go to the HelloFresh page and enter that code, they can see that this person came from this influencer. And that's one of the ways a lot of brands are seeing results and ROIs.
All right, great. So there's obviously sometimes there's also a how do you reach your audience? So one of the things I've kind of found out is that Kylie Jenner recently kind of being asked to kind of talk to the young people, to stay at home. So why do you think it actually has to take Kylie Jenner to actually persuade the young to kind of to stay at home?
I mean, I don't have a lot to say on this, and I don't actually follow Kylie Jenner, and I didn't actually see what Kylie Jenner said, but I just think people relate to people that are like them. And I think that's why a lot of people that follow me are young moms. And that's the kind of content I post, and I think that's why they stick around on my page. And, the people that are Kylie Jenner's age are in her, like, general kind of age group, and they think alike, they're going to listen to her. So, I mean, good for her for doing it.
All
I
right.
think the
Yeah.
marketers have made Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, and those generation kids and people have extremely different psychographics, and they function very independently of each other. So if you have to talk to an audience which is Gen Z, you have to look at Kylie Jenner. You have to, if you're talking to a millennial, you have to look at a millennial blogger or someone in that space. So I feel like people, like Janelle said, want to associate and listen and be influenced by people who are very similar to them.
So adding on to that, it kind of makes you wonder why we trust Kylie Jenner more than we trust the media. in general. So, you know, from a branding perspective, she has a lot more brand equity than the media, which is kind of interesting if you look at it that way.
All right. So I mean, obviously the younger generation kind of prefer short form content more, I guess. And so I mean, what I get your thought on the TikTok phenomenon? Anybody want to comment, please?
Well, I just recently joined it, like since the quarantine, and I think it's a ton of fun. Like, I've done a couple of videos on there. I haven't learned any dances or anything really cool, but one was just a video. It was a like probably 6-second video of my daughter flying a kite in our backyard, and I reversed it and put it to a Taylor Swift song, and it's like gotten 60,000 views. And it's just like keeps getting them. Like, you know, usually you see a lot of engagement right away, at least on the other channels. That's what I've normally seen. And this is just like slowly, steadily continuing to get views. So I don't know. I think it's fun and it's different and there's a lot of music. So it's like really easy to kind of just get sucked into it and just kind of flip through. I'm not seeing a ton of brand deals on it just yet. But I think everybody should kind of at least go out there and be like just a user that just checks it out.
All right. So, I mean, anyone want to comment maybe? So, I mean, obviously these tools are, you know, wonderful and then sometimes it's kind of fun. So what are some of the other, kind of look at the other side, what are some of the shortcomings for these two today? And something, maybe things we can wish to be improved upon, you know, such as Instagram, Facebook, maybe TikTok. What are some of the things, what are some of the shortcomings and then things you wish to improve upon?
I can't think of any shortcoming per se right now because I feel like these platforms are evolving every day, and Instagram and Facebook just rolled out with some new features. And I think Facebook is going to have a compatibility to something like similar to Zoom, so more people can chat. So I think they're, entering that side of the business too. And Instagram, like I said, stories is huge right now. I think after Snapchat came in, Instagram had to up their game and they launched stories, and ever since then Instagram has been fairly successful with stickers and a lot of other branding material and gifs and but with TikTok, I don't know. I have been on TikTok, and I think that the kind of content you have to create is daily. Like, the problem is that there's going to be so much content and for content fatigue that you keep making new and new content. It's going to be a struggle for a lot of content creators, unlike Instagram where people are very serious. They create nice visuals, images, and a story. TikTok is, I feel, more for the younger generation where they can just have fun and share it, and people can look at it and have fun. Like, and especially in COVID and with the current times, TikTok's gonna do better than probably an Instagram because of the number of short videos. But is that sustainable is the question.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just add, if anybody want to have a question with our panelists, please just put it in the chat so we can pick it up, towards the end of the session here. So I mean, yeah. So obviously these tools are kind of being direct engagement. So what are the other techniques that we can use to directly engage with our customers, people we work with, or friends maybe? What are some of the tools for direct engagement?
I mean, I'm not quite sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but I just think one of the best ways that I directly engage with my followers is through my DMs on Instagram. I think that's, they'll originally just, reach out to me on one of my stories, but then we kind of start to build a relationship. And then I might go to their page and like some of their photos, and then I just feel like we start to build this, pretty decent relationship for somebody who just went on the internet. And I think that's really neat. And then those will kind of be my super fans that I will always see commenting and liking. And I think that it's because I took the time to have that relationship with them through my DMs.
And yes.
So if I can answer that, I usually use stories a lot to interact with my audience. I use the question sticker and ask questions like, oh, what are the favorite Netflix shows are you watching? Because I feel like I've seen everything on Netflix now. And then I would use these the yes or no stickers, and I feel those stickers also bump up your story views and kind of gives you a sense of what your what your followers like I can ask them questions. What do you want to watch on my blog? Do you want homeschooling tips or do you want recipes? And then they kind of select the option that they like, and I see, oh, this content is going to work and this is not. So it's kind of an indicator also for brands to do a lot of research on their stories, because this is the simplest way market research can be captured now, for what the followers or consumers are looking at.
Yeah, and just to add super quickly onto that, I think if somebody is taking the time to respond to a question box or respond to a poll or whatever on your stories, that's a very engaged follower, in my opinion, if they're taking the time to type something into a question box for a blogger. So I feel like you really want to listen to those people, because those are some of your best followers.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I mean, obviously, we are in an unprecedented time right now. So, what are your thoughts? Once we get back to our daily life, once the economy reopens, and what do you think will be the new normal? Any comments?
I feel a lot of brands now need to have a very systematic approach towards how they want to present themselves to parents or to a family. Given the current crisis, I feel like a lot of people are going to hold back onto big spendings. Now, if you see the TV ads running for the big automobile companies, they're literally giving away the car for free for 4 months. So I feel like that's the kind of marketing shift that's going to happen, and the brands need to really focus on their communication. It has to be within the current times. It has to be emotionally driven. It has to be understanding, and also like what are the brands doing for the community overall. And I feel those will be the influencing factors for people to go and purchase them.
All right. So I'm gonna pick one audience question. Maybe Dave, maybe you can do it. How do you keep your content fresh? And what research, if any, need do you do to better understand your viewers' interest? How do you keep content fresh, and how to better understand the interest of your viewers?
On the how do I keep my content fresh question, I feel like a lot of that is easy because I do my stories pretty much every day, and I really just share whatever is going on in my life. And usually it's been a little bit repetitive lately, but usually that's different. We're going different places. I do a lot of like local Cyprus content, our local Houston content, so we're going different places, doing different things. And so I just share a lot of what's going on in my life. I don't necessarily stick to only recipe, a couple of things. I just kind of take my blog and my social media account along with me throughout my life and my day.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
So for me, it's very easy for a parenting blogger, I feel, because we have a storyline which is very day to day, like with a child. And now, if you are not a parenting blogger, I want to address people who are like fashion bloggers or are fashion brands or lifestyle brands. How do you deal with creating content? And I feel like, again, with you need to be authentic to what the current times are. So if you are a lifestyle brand, ask questions to your followers on what kind of material are they wearing at home. Are they in loungewear? Are they still dressing up? if you were a beauty brand or if you're a beauty blogger, what is the next question? How are they taking care of their eyebrows? Like you can't go to the salon. Or how are you cutting your hair? So I think it's all, you have to pivot at this moment from your natural brand creation and storyline and kind of stick to the current crisis and what is very relatable. So again, relatable and authentic content is definitely the way forward.
There's really cool tools that you can use to organize all those ideas that you have for content. As a blogger myself, I'm not quite an influencer, but doing like customer experience maps, or just following that general format, and you'll come up with tons of ideas of what you can do by just kind of going down the experience of the people you're trying to attract as an audience. So that's a really neat, nice tool that I've used before for content creation.
Okay. So another one from the audience. Do you all interact with other influencers or marketers in your area to kind of keep in touch, share ideas, area in the field of interest? Do you keep in touch with other influencers or collaborators or collaborations?
Yes, I have quite a few blogger friends. I think there's only a small amount of people that kind of understand this industry or being on this side of the blogger and influencer industry. So I think that's so important to have those friends that you can ask questions to, especially if you have somebody that's a little bit further along in the process. There's a girl out in this area, and I feel like she's just really taken me under her wing and has just been such a great mentor to me. And that has just been huge for me. She's encouraged me to go out and pitch and do different things. And so, yeah, that's huge, I think.
I think like any other business, this is another place where you need to be networking. And networking right now is going to be online if it's not going to be face to face. And also there are a lot of industry events that happen, like blogger events in the cities that you are in. You could host your own blogger event. You could be part of social media events. So I was last year a part of Mom 2.0, which is a blogging conference in Austin. I was a speaker there, and I was just by myself. I didn't know how, like 95%, or I would say 99% of the bloggers there. But it's only about just going out and reaching out and meeting new people and networking with brands and collaborating with them in different ways. So I feel like as a blogger, one should not stick to just staying at their home and just being with their family, but actually go out and meet people and see what's happening, because that's how you learn and share information.
Okay, another one from the audience. So what about the sense of online responsibility, capability, new features, apps, and size upgrades, encouraging more engagement, but this is necessary for the best overall well-being for the individuals, and enabling to be overwhelmed. Enabling user to be overwhelmed with its limitless content, increasing social pressure to fit in social norms, allowing kids to consume more and moderated content. I guess yes, it's some about social responsibility of the authenticity of content, and then kind of responsibility of what you post online. Any comments? That's kind of maybe
It's a good question. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of parenting bloggers end up getting judged for using their children in their content, and there are still forums where people talk about it. That you have your child in this picture and you're making money out of it. A lot of moms get shamed for that. There are even people on the internet who will come and say, "Oh, you love this child of yours and not the other one, because the other one is not in the pictures." I just have to say that again, as parents, we are creating a storyline which is extremely natural, and there are people who are going to judge along the way, and about the social norms and about everything that was said in that question. I feel like you just have to be yourself. when you are a content creator. You cannot be creating content was as to what others want, because then you're not authentic. You're just playing around with this and people are going to see it. Even brands need to stick to their target customer and not try to be someone that they are not try to be another brand. They need to kind of identify who are the people they're talking to and just stick to that, and those people will follow along.
All right. So I have a question from John Rosa or Johnsa. How do you know when you are ready to start posting content? And what do you say to get over the imposter syndrome? And I guess I combine it with the Dave's question. How do you stand out from a crowd? How do you create unique contents?
Well, to answer the first part of that question, I think you just have to start immediately. Just, especially if you don't have that much of a following, not that many people are going to see it, so just go for it. Honestly, my biggest regret with my blog is that I didn't start it when I wanted to start it originally. It took me a couple years to start, and I have learned so much throughout the time that I've been blogging, and I've made mistakes, and I've had to redo my website and do different things. But you have to start. So you have to start somewhere, and I feel like you're never going to necessarily feel 100% ready to start a new venture.
I think the thing about influencers, and I think this has been said several times, is that it's about how relatable you are. Because if I'm watching somebody, it's like I almost feel like they're my friend. So you almost just have to get out there, like Janelle was just saying, in the sense that if you're yourself, you're going to attract the right people anyways. And do it. You're not an imposter if you're just being yourself.
All right. So why do you think people are drawn to influencers? So it's also another question from Dave.
I feel like people go to influencers because they relate to them in some or the other way. It could be, first of all, how do they look, where do they come from, and then eventually the relatability kind of goes in the content. Is their journey? Are they vegan? Are they immigrants? Are they moms to autistic kids? Or like the relationship factors start building in. But eventually I feel a lot of people follow other people because they look like them. That's the first thing, because you see just an image on an Instagram, and then eventually when you start following them and you start liking their posts, you find a relatability. Sometimes people don't find that relatability, they unfollow, they will not stick along, they don't get what you're talking. So those are really not your followers. What, even if you might have 100,000 followers, but if there are only 1,000 people who stick along with you for your stories, for your messaging, and relate to you, those are your real followers, and that's all that you need to make any campaign successful.
Putting myself in the role of actually just, an Instagram user, I follow people because I genuinely like them. Like the people that I always, when I hop on and I go up and I try to go find their stories, are those the people that I just, I feel like I want to be friends with them. I think that they are funny or nice or endearing, or just, somebody that I like and I would like to be around. And those are the people that I'm drawn to most. And that's why that authenticity is so important, because you want people to just like you for you, who you are. And then those are the people that are going to look for your stories and, go see what you're up to and kind of check on you like you would check on a friend.
And so probably last question. So so how do you brainstorm for your content, and how do you keep your things authentic? Do you just kind of draw off of what's happening going on in the week, or do you keep a notebook of what's gonna happen or what you have in mind? So how do you brainstorm for ideas for content? How do you keep things authentic?
I really try to share my everyday moments, like my struggles. If I've gone on a bike ride, I'm going to talk about it, because we need to just go out and, just get into the nature and avoid, meeting people or having people at home. So it's just being close to nature helps. So it essentially is something that you can share from your day-to-day life. Also, you plan content for brand work. So if you know there's going to be content for Mother's Day, you are already shooting, making that content so that you can post it after 2 weeks. And a lot of content goes through brand approvals. So, even though the posting date might be after 3 weeks, your content needs to be ready now. And a lot of people start making Halloween content way before Halloween, or Christmas content 2 months prior to Christmas, because that content needs to be ready and essentially come out first. So you can plan your content calendar for big events, big dates, and then have, of course, a mix of authentic, real daily life moments.
And if you're working with a brand that has a big corporate culture or something like that, be ready to want to do work way in advance, because it can take a while to get things approved.
And I think that's why it's important to kind of know how you talk and how you message. So that's consistent, and you could slip that branded post in anywhere and it would just feel authentic. It would feel like it was organic, because you always kind of have that same tone when you're, writing captions and whatnot.
Okay, so we are almost right on time here. Anybody want to have more questions? I think we are pretty good, actually. Well, I think I'm going to conclude this session. And thank you for all the panelists to join us. And thank you, Rochelle, for a wonderful workshop. And if anybody want to be connected to our panelists or to Rochelle, maybe you can leave a comment in our meetup page, or direct email to the I guess Eventbrite. So if anything else, I think we are pretty good, and hopefully everybody had a great time today, and hopefully the lockdown will be end soon, and then we can get back to our daily normal lives. And all right, and thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week. All right, everybody. On that note, I think I'm gonna say bye. Bye, everybody.